Good evening, fellow ghouls and specters alike. It's your ghost host with the most, Tiki here.
I'm BlueDragonFive, here to engage in some haunted holiday hijinks by trudging through the catacombs and dusting off the cobwebs as we recount our spooky selection of Halloween classics.
So light the jack-o'-lantern, suit up, and grab the candy dish as we revive and recount tonight's spooky selection. Alvin and the Chipmunks meet Frankenstein.
Laugh with me, Freakazoid! Laugh with me!
It's Frankenstein.
It's alive!
Oh boy, Dragon. So I have in the video description anyone who grew up with Cartoon Network in the mid to late 90s to early 2000s. This is a nostalgic favorite, man. Cartoon Network used to play this thing all the time, and this is where I first discovered Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein. Dragon, I think this is like by far and away the best of the Alvin and the Chipmunks movies. At least the straight to DVD ones. I know that there's the Great Chipmunk Adventure, whatever it is, the theatrically released film, which we should really look into at some point because I remember that being pretty damn good. It actually kind of dark in some places. But in terms of like the Alvin and the Chipmunk crossover films, this is one I have a lot of nostalgia for, and it's funny because this movie is definitely you remember it for all the Frankenstein parts. But Dragon, the third act of this movie is so crazy, and we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll save it for favorite moments. But I can't wait to talk about the third act of this movie. It completely took me by surprise, and I didn't remember it from childhood, and that was delightful. But all the first and second act stuff, all the heartwarming stuff with with Theodore and Frankie and everything. We'll dive right into that as well. But this is a very as I said, it's a very nostalgic movie for a certain age demographic with which the two of us happen to fall under.
Yeah. So, yeah, Alvin and the Chipmunks, getting some nostalgia. So, I I'd seen very little of the Alvin and the Chipmunks TV series growing up, so very little of it. But what I do remember more so were the video stuff and the film on VHS. See the adventure. It's called Chipmunk Adventure. That one was released theatrically, and that's the big claim to fame. That's the big one. I kind on a VHS tape. I didn't even own the VHS tape. I just kind of like went over to a place and they had this thing playing. Just thinking of like, oh man, just keep playing this VHS tape, and I just kind of you get enamored with that. Okay, let's see. Oh man, they're on the hot air balloons. Well, they're trying to save the little thing. All right. So that way, and basically because of that, I when on again very similar idea here when it was premiering on Cartoon Network for the umpteenth year in a row, I suppose. But specifically when it aired on Tiki and I are fingers crossed are hoping was the Cartoon Theater kind of premiere thing they did. I caught both Alvin the Chipmunks Meet the Wolfman and Alvin the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein, and I believe chronology wise, Frankenstein came first, and then the Wolfman. Then there was this third one no one really cares about, but there are only two real monster crossovers. So Frankenstein was the first direct to
What
video.
was the third one?
If I'm remembering it correctly, it's called Alvin the Chipmunks Meet the Mini Monks, and it was just I have no idea.
Meet them what?
It's like Mini Monks or something. It's Mini something, and it sounds it's like a really cryptic poster. I've never seen it. I have no idea. The point is, there are only two that matter. Okay, that's the
All
main,
right, all right.
that's the headline here. But oh man, because I've always had a fondness for Frankenstein growing up, and this definitely fueled that fire back then. I was like, oh my god, this the Chipmunks. Of course, again, you get the gist of the Chipmunks. They're a little kind of some of them. Alvin's mischievous. Simon the Brain, and Theodore is kind of it's kind of the innocent one who eats all the food. And And again, it kind of hit my sensibilities, right? And I think deep down it's kind of hit my love of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And again, it's like another Meet Frankenstein movie, only this time it's animated. I just kind of like seeing Frankenstein animated in a crossover was kind of big for me at that point, and I really gravitated towards that. And I just love. Looking back on this movie, every time I think of this movie, the main thing that jumps out to me is all the Frankenstein stuff, and I have such a fondness for the novelty of meeting Frankenstein, and specifically what they do with Frankenstein in this movie. I love the idea of a nice Frankenstein, like the misunderstood monster actually getting a fair shake this time around. I love that idea. It's such a beautiful little novelty. What if Frankenstein? What if he made friends? That's so nice. So, and now, look, in regards to maybe we should broach a little bit because we rarely talk about the Chipmunks. Maybe we should broach on the live action films, the Smidge. Have you ever seen it?
Really? Do we have to? Do we have to? Can we just pretend they don't exist?
I just want to acknowledge them real quick here because the whole franchise was. Have you seen
I remember my best friend in high school dragged me to the first one, and I was just like, "Why are you doing this to me? What? Why?"
See, I've seen two of the live actions, the first two. I've seen the first two, and the first one, I think the first one has out of all of them, obviously, I think the first one is the only watchable one out of all of them. But I love narratively what they do with the first one, where it's basically they're paralleling the real life history of the Alvin and the Chipmunks franchise with kind of the start and the creation of it within the movie. And that's the main thing. Again, believe I'm not saying there's not a lot to that first movie. I'm just saying that's kind of the main. It's kind of neat to see like an origin of the Chipmunks of their career and everything, kind of seeing that kind of unfold in that first movie. And that's like the main kind of pleasant thing you can say about that franchise as a whole. The first movie, it's watchable. Second movie, I made the mistake of going because again, I had like a decent experience with the first one. I was like, yeah, what the heck? I'll do the second one. I saw the second one, and not even Zach Levi, who's gonna be Flynn Rider himself and soon to be Shazam. Not even he, despite his best efforts, could make that movie not stink. It stunk to high heaven, Tiki. It was horrible. It was not good. And from what I hear, and from what you've kind of seen in reviews, the other movies have just kind of become more pitiful as they've gone on. And I have
Shipwrecked.
Yes, and Tiki, here's the thing that pisses me off, and this is where I'm bringing up the franchise. Here's what I really want to get at. Okay, Nickelodeon has picked up, or at least Nicktoons, one of the Nickelodeon subsects. They picked up the Alvin and the Chipmunks franchise. I don't know if like they just the ownership has fallen to them now, or if they just somehow they got the rights. So the point is they're doing a new Alvin and the Chipmunks show. It's like Alvin. That's what it's called. The point is, it's computer generated and it's pitiful, Teak. It's not even bad. It's just pitiful. Like, oh man, I can't. I don't even. I mean, look, Planet Sheen is a disaster, and it's just something. It's like to hate fervently because it deserves that hate. But the Alvin Chipmunks isn't even worth my time. It's like, oh god, it's just sad.
And you know what, Dragon? Alvin and the Chipmunks. When I was a kid, I will admit I am not into the show at all. Like, I didn't really like Alvin as a main character. I thought he was like really a brat in the original '80s cartoon. And, he was kind of like one of those kids where, like, he was a very self-entitled character. And I feel like he's much better represented in this movie than he was in that original cartoon. Because in that original cartoon, man, he was hard to like as a main character. And, Alvin and the Chipmunks was always something that was on Cartoon Network. And you'd be like, well, I guess I'll watch it, but I wish I was watching like Dexter's Lab or Cow and Chicken or something like that.
You settle for it, but again, it had its moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, but again, like what they're doing now,
it was like the Johnny Test of its day.
Let me tell you the weird thing. Here's the thing that makes me just like just not even not even give it a shot. Here's the thing, just like,
okay.
One, they can never get the animation speed right because I don't know if it's just the way it airs on TV, but it's just always like the animation looks sped up or makes the CG look even more fake and uncanny. It makes it like it's not animation. It's just like them turning out like a clay mold product, and by clay mold I just mean it's kind of like it's like the leftover CG from a good movie. Essentially, it's like
man.
My point. Here's the thing that bugs me about it. Here's the thing that just weirds me out about it. It's like, oh man, what were they thinking? Is they got. Every time you have a permutation of the Chipmunks, they got to make the big decision, like how chipmunk like are they? And the movies, it was like okay, they're actual chipmunks, which okay, I mean that's what they went for, and that's what they committed to, and that's kind of different. I guess it's refreshing. So there's that. But what you and I are used to, what classically I think everybody's used to, what they're marketed as for years, and especially what you and I have kind of gleaned onto with Frankenstein, Chipmunk Adventure, and Wolfman, is they're kind of like they're the size of kids, but they're chipmunks.
Mm-hmm.
It's like something cartoony, but it's just like we accept it because it's like an anthropomorphized thing. You accept it. But this show does. They try to mix them both together, and it is, man, it's not. They're kids going to
Is it
school.
kind of like new Chuck E. Cheese?
I I I I think that's an apt description. I haven't realized have they changed that at all since the Chuck E. Cheese things is the one you're referring to? Because I know that they have like a younger looking, like thinned out.
Well, the one I'm referring to is kind of like the more rat-looking one with the more pronounced nose and everything. It's like they're trying to make it more realistic.
I think it's a good description. It sounds about right. And the point is they're the size of chipmunks, but they are all they're trying to go for they look too human is what I'm saying, Tiki. They look too human and they just look like short kids. And it's like what's the point if they're not going to be chipmunks? But again, like they're wearing pants. It's like it's just what's going like it's like it's between man. It's an unholy hybrid between man and chipmunk is what I'm saying. Opposed to what we have fond nostalgia for, which we're going to talk about this fine haunted evening. So that said, I mean, unless you have any more nostalgia you'd like to get out, let's.
No, except for like the cartoon theater, just in general, Dragon. They played a lot of great movies on there. I remember seeing Balto on there. Most importantly, I believe that's where a lot of people saw Iron Giant for the first time.
Yeah, man, I remember that. All they used to do like these marathons of Iron Giant. They always they clip of him riding the bike, and they always used of Hogarth riding the bike into the diner, like when he's bringing home the pet to Annie and all that. They keep using that clip, and then anyway, sorry, but yes, I do remember that.
All right, so let's dive right into it. Dragon, give us a plot summary.
Here's the plot in a nutshell. We're not going to go beat by beat for this, so I might as well just kind of summarize the events that happen in the plot here, so we can all follow along. In case for some reason you haven't seen this yet, check it out just for the novelty of it, and then come back to us here. But if not, if you just want to kind of roll the dice, here's the plot. So Alvin the Chipmunks, they have a gig at Majestic Movie Studios theme park, which essentially is Universal Studios for all intents and purposes. It's going to be parody of Universal Studios. Alvin suggests they take a shortcut to Dragonland, which is basically kind of it's kind of the then what is now kind of the Harry Potter equivalent. It's kind of like that section that's very popular with the big rider that wants to go to, so Dragonland.
Right.
Which would be the
or for your Walt Disney World visitors, basically the Pandora of the park.
Essentially, yeah, it's like a Pandora, I suppose. Alvin wants to take a shortcut after one. Just to speed things up here, they take a shortcut via the Frankenstein's castle section, which I believe is geographically would have been kind of the Bates Motel section of the original Universal Park. I think is what they're going for there, but I don't know because they actually borrowed from actual geography on this, so it's kind of fascinating. But
did they really?
They did actually on the map. It's actually modeled after. It's remarkably close on how close because they're modeled after the California one.
Now I kind of want to go back and rewatch and see how close it is.
Well, you got to check it by here's the thing. I don't know by the Florida one. I don't know by the California one, which I believe they're borrowing from, which I believe might have some other.
And I know more about the California one than the Florida one. So, like I said, that's definitely incentive for me to go back and rewatch this.
The year equivalent, like 98 and 99, and you can actually match up those. Anyway, sorry, we're getting off tracks. The point is, so Alan's just taking a shortcut to Dragonland via Frankenstein's castle, where the actual, no joke here, folks, where the actual Dr. Frankenstein revives Frankenstein's monster. While getting chased by said monster, the Chipmunks befriend Frankenstein. They find that he is quite friendly, and specifically this iteration of the Frankenstein monster befriends Theodore. We have a lot of fun, a lot of bonding goes on in Act 2. Then the Mad Doctor tracks Frankenstein down, realizing it's a lost cause, so he kidnaps Alvin in retaliation to create a new Toon-like monster. Let's call it. The climax is kind of a twofold thing. The climax all takes place around the premiere of the new Bud Wiley film, A Midsummer Night's Car Chase. So at this premiere, they're trying to get kind of the toonified Alvin to calm down, to cure him. before someone gets hurt or their careers are ruined, a little bit of both. And then we have the big moment of truth where Theodore defends Frankenstein to the modern day angry mob equivalent. And in the end, all is well, and Frankenstein is a tour guide for the tram ride. Ain't that wonderful? And that's the movie.
All right. So let's see. Let's get into the characters, starting with the Chipmunks themselves. How do you want to approach this, Drake? Do you want to go like individually?
Yeah, let's do individual. Let's kind of rapid fire individually. What do you say?
Sure. I guess start with Alvin, end on Theodore.
Sure.
Right. So yeah, like I said, Alvin is definitely more tolerable in this movie than he is in a lot of the other Alvin and the Chipmunk stuff I've seen. I like that he's he's not necessarily the full of himself in this, and it's more just kind of like a personal desire to kind of push the limits of Halloween fun. I like that he's in it for a good cause.
Yeah, like it's not out of malice that he's doing. Like I think the big thing that really stuck out to me, Alvin in the movie compared to compare it again. Alvin is you're absolutely right. Alvin is a tricky character because gotta remember they're really with the Alvin the Chipmunks franchise as a whole. They're always extrapolating off of the original songs, off of the whole like Alvin. That's all they really have to go off of.
Right.
Running with that for years of like, okay, well, we kind of have these three personality types and just kind of do what you can with and just attach it to a story. It's really it's that rinse and repeat. And oh, look, they're the female versions of them. That's about it with the Chipmunks franchise. With Alvin is like a degree of which you can sell that before it gets like old hat or like it gets to the point of Alvin's just like he's this annoying character. Why like he's a character who gets yelled at, therefore he is mischievous and a troublemaker, and that character can only get you so far unless you know what you're doing. And here, I feel the big moment that kind of shows a softer, kind of a preferable side of Alvin is that it's an accident. Like he causes all this destruction and mischief not on purpose. It just happens to him, and he's apologetic. And he deep down you get to see that deep down he's a good kid, and he's not. It's like he's impulsive and a little opportunistic, and it's mostly ego versus attitude. It's kind of the attitude of having ego. He's a wise guy more than he is like an anarchist, if that makes any sense.
Oh.
Importantly, he kicks off the story. So looking at the story roles of our three chipmunks here, Alvin really kicks things off with, again, that impulsiveness. Like, hey, let's take the shortcut, which, of course, shortcut gives us the whole movie. And I think we'll just to touch on a smidge here, briefly, because we're going to get into this later on big time of what exactly happens. But I like that Alvin's transformation. We do kind of put Alvin under a microscope a little bit in this movie, where we kind of see his destructive traits explored and exaggerated in kind of a...
Yeah, there's a little bit of a meta gag going on there, Dragon, and you're right. We'll definitely take a deep dive into that when it comes to our favorite things in this movie, because... As I said, Dragon, all the third act stuff with Alvin took me completely by surprise. I don't know why I don't remember the third act stuff as much as I do, but
I'm surprised you didn't remember the third act. I gotta be honest.
All right.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing. It's really yeah. I'm sorry. We'll save it for later. Sorry. Go on. Let's move on to the next character.
Okay, so Simon, not much to say about Simon. He's just kind of like baseline, like, yeah, he's the intellectual. He's kind of like the voice of reason in the room, I'd say he's probably the chipmunk with the least screen time or story development.
I always like Simon, but I feel Simon gets more to do in the Wolfman animated than this one here. Simon.
Of course, Dragon, my favorite Simon moment of all time is marijuana, an illegal substance used to produce artificial highs.
Anyone is baffled by that is from Cartoon All Stars, the educational.
Simon, I can't believe Simon from the Chipmunks just said marijuana.
From the anti-drug PSA film that everybody either knows or is still baffled by to this day.
I know it, and I'm still baffled by it.
Yeah. So, Simon here pretty much, you're right, Tiki, not a lot here, but Simon, he's kind of, he serves as the straight man, the problem solver. He's kind of like the guy who he's a little smart in Dr. Frankenstein, which cracks me up, that he knows the book better than he does. It's kind of funny.
Uh-huh.
And he's looking out for his brothers, looking out for Simon, and of course, as always, Theo. That's my favorite thing about Simon as a character, Pierre. I love that he always looks out for Theodore out of all of them. He's always like the little. He's always like the protector of the youngest. Like I don't know who you think. Who do you think's the oldest? I think Simon's the oldest, right?
I want to say Simon's the oldest, probably.
Or
Yeah.
the tallest. I don't want to just be blasé and just like whoever is the tallest must be the most important and have the most
Well, I
seniority.
mean, to be fair, Simon's by far the most mature, so.
Certainly. Okay. So speaking of Theodore.
All right, so yeah, Theodore. This is definitely Theodore's movie, and all the. I feel like all the nostalgia, all the big memorable moments come from Theodore.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you this. Theodore, he was always the heart of the movie for me because, Theodore and Frankenstein, because Frankenstein's where my interest lies, first and foremost, when I was watching this movie, like an animated Frankenstein movie, and they're the Chipmunks, hooray. Uh, but Theodore, the friendship that he cultivates with Frankie is delightful, and it stems from kind of that sweet, untainted by fame and Hollywood, character. It's like, I think there's a fascinating commentary on Hollywood in this movie. I don't think they go far with it, but bear in mind, it's not exactly intended to get into the nitty gritty of all these themes and ideas. I get it. But I do like that we scratch the surface on some of this, and I like that you can look at each of the chipmunks and kind of see a perspective of Hollywood. Alvin, obviously, he's wrapped up in it. He believes, his own ego. Simon, he's like the guy worrying about the careers and the longevity, and Theodore's just kind of starstruck by it all. Theodore's the guy who's like he knows the lines to the shows. He knows he's the fan of the actors and everything. Theodore's tapped into the people of the business, and that sweetness, just kind of that earnestness in the business is what allows him to be open and to befriending someone different than who he is, and just kind of being open-minded enough to kind of befriend the monster everybody else would be scared by. He himself being terrified by. Like Theodore is facing his fears in a major way, and through that, and through facing his fears, through conquering his fears, he basically conquers his fears through friendship. That's what I'm trying to say here, and that's kind of a nice little message. I thought it's a really message with it. The one nitpick I do have with Theodore though is Theodore can be one note sometimes. The whole like, oh boy, Theodore's hungry. Surprise, surprise! Like they always do the Theodore hungry joke constantly, but
I mean that's one note, and also I kind of just think that the relationship, while it is sweet, it's it's a little bit on the overly syrupy side for my taste. It's a little too cutesy.
I don't disagree with it.
That's just maybe me looking as an adult. Like as an adult, I'm far more drawn to the wacky, like, batshit stuff going on with Alvin in the third act in this movie, frankly.
See, it's funny you bring that up because I agree with you that it is. You're looking back on it. It's a little extra sweet. If you get, it's a little.
Like if I didn't have the nostalgia for it, I'd be like, all right, movie, you're really laying this on thick.
Exactly, and I do see that. When I was first watching, I didn't really pick up on that. I was like just kind of blown away by it. But yeah, I do see that. Yeah, it's kind of hard to nail down why exactly that is. But yeah, it's a little too sweet and low for me.
Well, I feel like the reason why that is because at the end of the day, and we'll kind of get into this with our final thoughts, at the end of the day, it's still a Frankenstein movie, you know what I mean? And so, like, I feel like there's a little bit of just a little bit of a tonal disconnect there.
All right. Well, we'll dive into that. So I guess should we get to Dave next?
Yeah, sure, Dave. And I feel like with Dave, we can also rope in Mr. Yes Man.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. Yeah. So Dave, of course, kind of the agent and the father role again, kind of balancing, kind of being a Hollywood agent as well as a good father. We don't really showcase enough of the fatherliness in this, but I don't know. I think Dave's on the sidelines a lot in this movie versus where
he really is. I mean, to me, like the most memorable stuff with Dave is when he's interacting with Mr. Yes Man.
I always love that the creator of Alvin the Chipmunk's son does the voice of Dave, Alvin, and Simon. It's all the same voice actor. I love that. That's the thing I've always loved, and that's one of the reasons I kind of respect what they were doing with the first live action movies. I do like kind of having the heritage and kind of basically Dave Seville is kind of intrinsically linked to the creator of the Chipmunks property. So I do like that kind of heritage within the franchise. It's kind of neat, And of course, the whole fatherly angle is what I usually like about Dave, and we don't really showcase that. Although we do, but the the main thing we do with that is when the chipmunks go missing and Dave, he feels, he calls the police, as you would, and he's basically kind of getting, again, this is where we get into that syrupy territory. Man, we're really laying it on thick that he misses the boys and like going through all the photographs and everything. And that's when Alvin, he burned down the house. Oh yeah, I remember, I got that call. And of course, there's when he pulled an ET and he freed all the lab rats. It's teacher strangling. Yeah, yep, I got that. It's like, that's about the most we do with that. But of course, once that's wrapped up, and it's like really not until Theodore's potentially threatened towards the very end do we really see that again. So I mean, Dave sidelines is pretty much the best way of putting it. Yeah, I think he kind of represents the optimism of Hollywood. I think if you want to kind of look at it that angle, he does kind of represent kind of like there's always a second chance in Hollywood. People, no matter how flustered or stressed out they get, they'll get, if they're desperate, they'll give you a second chance, and he's just trying to like do the business, keep everybody on the straight and narrow, keep kind of, again, it's like raising child stars in a way. It's kind of what he's doing. And I love that when it counts, he sticks up for his boys. And who does he stick up for his boys against, Tiki?
Against well, wait, I thought you haven't. We're doing Frankie next, not Frankenstein.
Well, yeah, but you wanted to do Dave and Mr.
Oh, yeah, right. Sorry. My bad. Yeah, I botched that. Dave and Mr. Yes Man. I thought we were kind of done talking about Mr. Yes Man. There's not much to say about him, but
reference his name. We didn't say anything about Yes Man.
Right. Okay,
well, what do you like about Yes Man?
I just find his name entertaining. Okay, I didn't want to give off the impression that I have a ton to say about him.
Okay. Yeah, it's basically like he's he's not the owner and operator. He's just literally a yes man within the company. He's like an intermediary guy. He's just kind of losing his cool. Like, oh my God, something's not going right, and your kids will never eat nuts in this town again. Of course, he's like, it's rubs Dave the wrong way, but at the same time, Dave is sympathetic. Says, look, I get you're frustrated. Don't threaten me. But yeah, it's like Dave's just kind of he's dealing with the flustered Hollywood, the other flustered Hollywood agent. It's just it's funny.
Yeah, and like I said, most of the screen time from Dave kind of comes from dealing with this guy. So it's, as you said, Dragon, the finer points of Dave's character, the whole fatherly figure business, not really brought up in this movie too much.
Which is kind of a shame, but at least, well, we got him as we saw the agent side, which is kind of a rare glimpse. I guess it's something.
No, that's true. The agent side of Dave is the side that I'm kind of more interested in, to tell you the truth, because we don't get to see it that much. And
that's the thing about
balancing act.
Yeah, that's the thing about this movie that really kind of makes it stand out to me years later. The thing I really like in Act 1 that we did, don't know, it's in the whole movie, I'm just saying, especially Act 1 with all this Dave stuff, is that, the other movies, honestly, period, with the Alvin the Chipmunks property, and whenever we see him in animation, not counting, basically, aside from the live action movies, I can't really recall when we do anything with the Chipmunks' career. I mean, I'm sure the series did it a couple times. I mean, they'd have to, right? So, yeah, if you ever seen playing instruments, they're playing a gig. So it implies that I don't think we see it as much as we think we have. I get a sense of that from the franchise, but I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like, we don't see them like do enough gigs and booking enough. We don't justify the premise of the show. It's just, okay, man with 3 chipmunk sons. Okay, let's run with that. right. There's a sense of animation, like, well, okay, just have a few songs in there. Well, do we need to show how they book gigs and like what the deal is? Like, it's just they get a talent show or something. Just do it. All right, so that's let's talk about the big star.
Yeah, so Frankie, I don't know, Dragon. I gotta say, I think that issue that I brought up with the kind of like overly syrupy and sentimental, like, it kind of applies to this character. Like, the character animation on him is great and everything, and it is and as you said, it's basically the whole premise is kind of like, like, what if the flower scene in Frankenstein actually went well, and it kind of spun off this whole, heartwarming story with the little girl. You know what I mean?
That is a what if, though. It's just too great. It's too great.
So on that end, it's definitely successful. As I said, I could have done, as I said, I think the main issue is that there's kind of this tonal disconnect where, I feel like we could have gotten a little bit more of the, I feel like there could have been maybe a little bit more build up, perhaps. I don't know what I'm missing here, Dragon, but
It's not an issue of build-up because it takes him like 45 to like takes him almost not an hour, but it takes like 40 minutes into like an
no,
hour.
you're right. You're right. It's a good like half of the movie is build up. You're right about that. So it's not really that. Good point.
I know here's something's off, but again, I really don't think that's on Frankenstein. I think that's coming. I think it's the sugary response to Franks. I think there's overcompensation in selling the idea where the idea is good enough to sell on its own. That's what I really think it is.
I guess that's true. Maybe it's the fact that like they just fall in love with Frankie so quickly, and I don't know. Again, there's a little bit of a disconnect there.
And part of me thinks it's like less is more, but they overcompensated with the more. It's like they went overboard but they wanted to get to the finish line before they kind of justify that, yeah, it would take some time, and Frankenstein's an imposing guy, and like some ideas I think also would have been kind of neat that we kind of touch on, but I don't know, maybe stretched out could have been interesting. Would be like seeing how Frankenstein would turn out in a different era, which is kind of what the movie's doing, like Frankenstein in modern day Hollywood. That's kind of an interesting idea. I'd love to see what happens with that, but we kind of don't. We get some fun. We get some gags on it, like in the like
I would cast Bill Hader in that movie,
Oh my god, that'd be so good.
and Frank as the Frankenstein monster.
I'm sold on that. I'll buy a ticket to that. I love that. Here's the cool thing. I mean, the thing I completely forgot about rewatching the movie. It's been a while since I've rewatched, at least from, usually I'll tune in while it comes on. I haven't really started from the very beginning. And I kind of that literally this is a Frankenstein with a different head on his shoulders from the one we saw the traditional Frankenstein at the very top. It's the black and white, and he's going through the village and everything. Basically it's the book and the story playing out. Mainly, like the movie playing out. It's going to the windmill scene practically.
Right.
And then, of course, the doctor, he removes the head and puts in a duffel bag. As he does that, he drops the head. He says, "Don't worry, I have a spare," which means this Frankenstein has that's kind of the X factor. Instead of an abnormal brain, he just had like a friendly brain in him by accident. It's like he had a good head on his shoulders this time. Very, I gotta tell you, it's such like a charming idea. And Alvin, sorry, let me rephrase it. And it's like Frankenstein with all the potential of the original. Again, allowed to flower in the literal sense. Like if we allow like all the good that Frankenstein was capable of, like getting soup with the blind man, like playing with the little girl. Like, what if we saw all that potential good flowered and nurtured by people instead of being hounded by people? And it's like he's like nurtured by friendship and these basic lessons in sharing and morality, and this is all stuff I'd love to see explored. Frankenstein, we kind of got that here. Yes, it's a little overly kind of satirized with kind of satirized with, I don't want to just say sugar because we just keep saying sugar. It sounds like we're baking something, but yeah, it's like it's over. It's a lot of sweetness.
I mean, you're not wrong though. It does, this movie does kind of subvert a lot of the Frankenstein tropes, which is, an interesting way to go about something like this.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. So let's get to Herr Doctor. Let's get to Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah, first of all, the fact that he's conducting all his experiments literally in the middle of the theme park, it calls to mind Doug for me, Dragon.
Really?
Well, the fact that like with Doug there was the basically from what I remember of Doug, it was basically the theme park that was literally built around a real haunted house.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right about that.
Like, this isn't the haunted mansion where they build out some shell of a haunted house. No, this is like a real haunted house with a history behind it.
I gotta tell you, I do love. I have issues which we'll get into when we get to, like pros and cons, but basically, I have issues. There are some big holes in logic with this movie that never occurred to me until like a real kind of fine tooth comb look. But I do love that idea too. I love like Dr. Frankenstein recreating his work in a Universal-esque theme park. I think that's a hilarious idea. Again, that's a movie in itself that I'm down for.
And I mean, to keep it simple with this Frankenstein, I feel like he's kind of the average Joe Frankenstein. You know what I mean? He's kind of like just the working stiff. He just wants a success dragon. That's what it comes down to.
Here's the thing: this Doctor Frankenstein, he's quite funny. I love that he's put into this. I think there's like, and I could be crazy here, and you can tell me if I'm crazy on this, but I kind of found this again. If we're connecting a little bit of Hollywood in each of these characters, I feel Doctor Frankenstein has the best Hollywood arc out of anybody in this whole film, where he's put into this absurd situation, and he's the villainous mad doctor. He's put into this absurd situation of like he's recreating the monster in the theme park in kind of this Hollywood based climate in this theme park. And he's doing his own dirty work, he's which makes him look ridiculous at various points, like when he's sneaking into a Hollywood party later on. There's like a lady, and that's like in the Sammy Squirrel costume. And this is where I'm getting to, is that I love that he gets this. We see kind of how Hollywood changes the man's approach, to he's like starts up like a theme with the whole theme park mascot idea. Basically turns like the whole Frankenstein theme park mascot idea. He takes like that little in of like no one will suspect me rebuilding the monster in a theme park based around Frankenstein. Be completely under suspicion, and he recreates it. And then basically he's just confounded at every turn, and as he just gets like it's like he can't get the Sammy Squirrel song out of his head for the whole movie, and it's like it's starting to change him. He can't get into a Hollywood premiere party, so he has to jump through all these hoops, and in the end, he has the greatest comeuppance ever. This is one of the great comeuppances for what he's done throughout this movie. He's stuck in the symbol of what he's had to do, all the ridiculous stuff he's had to do for the whole movie in this theme park. He's stuck in the costume of the song that he can't get out of his head. He's the symbol of what's kind of demysticized the Frankenstein myth of like, no, it's not the Frankenstein castle, it's the Frankenstein castle in a theme park. He's stuck in that costume, and because the zipper's fused up, and he has to perform. There's no way out of that costume. God knows how he's bathing in that suit. God knows how.
God.
So again, I just love it. It's the symbol of what's been undercutting his seriousness and his purpose for the whole movie. Like his purpose is just creating the monster and having it do his bidding. And this whole movie, it's like the monster befriends 3 chipmunks, and then he tries to turn one of the chipmunks into a monster. It all fly. It's failure in his face, and he's stuck to live the rest of his days as the singing yes man of a theme park. Basically, of like the Mickey Mouse symbol for the theme park is that you can't write that. It's hilarious.
Yep.
It's kind of a fun absurdist take on Victor Frankenstein. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right. So unless you want to talk about Phil,
Who was Phil?
Phil was the very David Spade-esque tram driver.
Right, yeah.
I thought you might want to bring it up.
No, I'm good.
I don't think that Phil. We'll touch on Phil a little later on, but we don't really need to talk about Phil. Just every sad actor in Hollywood. Let's move on. So let's just kind of broad spectrum here. Let's talk about pros and cons. What worked in the movie, what didn't.
All right. Let's see. So pros, come to think of it, Dragon, I do think that this movie has a good build up to it. I think it's smart that the first half of it does kind of build up to the monster, and it's not just all about the the bonding and everything. And I feel like especially in that first half we do get more of the horror movie atmosphere.
Yeah, we do. I like, again, as I mentioned before, I love the satire and kind of the setting of this Universal-esque theme park. I mean, it's that whole satire on basically Universal. I think it's hilarious. And Universal, I believe Universal was involved in the release of this movie. It's under the Universal banner, so I think it's like an animated movie per Universal. I'm pretty sure. I know it's involved, but I don't know how directly. So I think it's where they got the yes. That's where they got the okay for a lot of this theme park stuff. I'm sure. So it's a lot of fun. There are a lot of fun references. Again, the map locations are inspired by the real Universal map locations, which I think is hilarious. It's just there. And there's again, it's just a lot of fun. Like like Phil on the tram ride, he's referencing high society, low lives, which is a reference to high society, low morals. It's like there are a lot of fun, little tongue in cheek references to Hollywood and movies, and just kind of these theme parkisms. It's great.
I'd say for direct to video quality, the especially the backgrounds are really good, especially in the theme park setting.
Yeah.
Um,
I do like there's a little bit of a commentary on the Alvin the Chipmunks brand via the live show and the bookings. Like again, like they're booked at the end. The idea is like it's like the Beetlejuice, like the whole God, the full names escape me. The whole graveyard review of Beetlejuice, and it used to be the Ghostbusters musical.
Beetlejuice's Rocking Graveyard Review, I think, is the official title.
Yes, that one. And basically, that's what again geographically on that map, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're in that section where that Beetlejuice attraction was, and that's and again, I like that we're seeing kind of these mundanities of like Adam Chipmunks are at a point in their career where they're doing this, where they're going commercial, they're kind of linking their chain to a theme park, to a name brand, to a studio name. Get some fun subtext there.
And of course, the celebrity image is very much touched upon in the third act, and we'll get more into that with favorite moments.
Certainly, certainly. Again, for me, I think it's a great Frankenstein design we have to work with. They get the platform shoes, they got everything, they got the scar, and because it's Universal, they don't see usually with Frankenstein when you do a parody of Frankenstein or just use Frankenstein and you're not Universal, you have to change up the design. But here they were able to use the classic 1930s design, the scar and everything in the look of Frankenstein, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of it's a great design, and again, just the whole as I mentioned ad nauseum before. I love the friendly take on the monster. Such a rare thing you see with Frankenstein. But don't worry, it's always the misunderstood quality. But it's like seeing him look genuinely friendly. I think that delights me to no end. I love that.
Sure.
Let's see. Again, it's a funny take on Dr. Frankenstein. I think the song sequences are well animated. Not really earworms though. They're not. That kind of fits into that sugary sweet quality. There's something little. That's again, if I say sugary sweets, because I can't think what the proper way of putting it is. Because there's something off about those songs that doesn't hold up like it did the first time. Like their main marquee song is fine, but it's like the other two in the movie, it's like something off about them.
Yeah.
It's like the novelty of the Chipmunks running thin, I guess. Maybe that's it.
I mean, I've just never been a fan of the Chipmunks singing to begin with.
And that's the thing. Unless you're like, I wonder how the diehard Chipmunk fans feel about the songs in this movie. That's the real question. It's like, I don't know. All right, and again, it's the writing on Hollywood and the theme park. I already mentioned that. So again, that's pretty much. I think that's a decent amount of prose. Let's get into what's not quite cutting the mustard with the movie.
All right. Well, as we already agreed, the movie definitely has sort of tonal disconnect to it. It's good intention for sure, but there is kind of like, especially in the second act. The second act is the most memorable, but at the same time, it's kind of the place where we get the most kind of like, all right, it's just adorable bonding experiences all the way around.
Yeah, and again, a lot of it's like an hour and it's roughly an hour and 20 minutes, hour 17, I think. But the point is, the movie there's not a lot of time, and they spent a lot. There's a lot of build up with that 40 minutes, and I feel that build up cost them a lot in kind of like legitimate bonding time that would have felt more justified. I feel that's where that problem comes from. I feel it's just like if they basically got to the whole Frankenstein and the Chipmunks meet each other, basically get the whole namesake of the movie a little faster. Again, I don't know how much you only have so much time, so I don't know.
There's not enough time between the initial meeting and then them becoming best friends with Frankenstein. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't mind cutting to like they're not like there's not a lot of skepticism with Frankenstein, but I'm saying Frankenstein getting to like them and getting to. I mean, Tiki, it just feels almost like. It's such a left turn to what we're used to. They took a big subversion. I kind of respect that choice, but at the same time, something's off about it. It's like I love that choice, that we don't have to go through the whole, like, the thing we're used to of like, oh boy, it's like Frankenstein, you might not get along with him, but if of all characters to do that with, Frankenstein would be a little bit hard to, I wish there was like more time educating Frankenstein, like a passage of time of like seeing how far he's come along. I guess that's what I'm missing. It's less the whole, like, we don't need skepticism, which they subvert. Like, we don't have any skepticism. Like, the minute, okay, here's Frankenstein, he's our buddy, we're gonna roll with it. Like, that doesn't bug me. It's just that whole, it's like, oh man, they're really bosom buddies at this point. It seems like weeks have gone by. We're just, I guess, maybe a couple days have gone by. That's the thing. Like, if we're gonna do like, let's have weeks go by. Literally, all this happens in a day, which feels kind of rushed. It's like, oh man, yeah, it is kind of a stretch.
Yeah, that's not great.
So basically, I think it's less tone. Right. I think it's more timing. I think it's timing that compromises the tone. Maybe that's it. So here's the thing. Here's the thing that never occurred to me before that really is a big gaping logic hole in this movie. So the opening.
Oh God. Movie, okay.
The opening of the movie doesn't make a lot of sense. You can slice it one of three ways here. The opening makes for a confused premise. Again, if you forget that opening, you'll be fine in the movie. But that opening really makes you scratch your head because we see the old black and white, they're old villagers. I mean, I tried seeing like how modern it could be. Maybe black and white is the artistic choice, but no, it's like black and white old villagers. They have pitchforks, torches. They're all very Hungarian looking. They're, it's very, it seems like they're showing the actual history of, they're showing the Frankenstein myth years and years ago, as we're used to with the Mary Shelley book,
Mm-hmm.
And then the idea is like the one that makes the most sense, Tiki, is that, okay, this actually happened. Then years and years later, for some reason, Victor Frankenstein just won't kick the bucket. But years and years later, Frankenstein, the books have been written based on a true story. That's the only difference. Like, based on a true story, the events of Frankenstein have happened. It's been a movie, it's been a franchise, it's in this universalist theme park. All the Frankenstein stuff, basically as we know today, only actually happened. And Dr. Frankenstein luckily has survived, and that's the way that makes most sense. And you see how that's a leap in itself, right?
It almost feels like they kind of should have gone the young Frankenstein route.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, basically, like, that village opening makes it seem like, bear in mind, I'll accept that, but it's still a buy that Dr. Frankenstein would be that old. And they don't make him look different in the flashback. He just looks like the same. It's the same model. He doesn't look like a young man or anything. He's like, I'll buy. I know that's a stretch in itself. Like, that's a lot of years. But I mean, I'll buy. Okay, young man, old man. I'll buy it. Didn't do it because here's the way it really doesn't make sense. Like, and that's the simple way of putting it is, if you look at it as like, okay, real Frankenstein, then years later, just by sheer coincidence, and this is where it makes no sense if you look at it any other way than the way it kind of laid it out here, is that, okay, if we're saying there's a real Frankenstein, therefore the Frankenstein franchise never exists. Like, no Frankenstein stuff exists. There's just like a castle, and they bring in this Dr. Frankenstein who just goes by the same name of like, oh man, Dr. Frankenstein, how convenient. So it has to be like, okay, there's a man. There's no Frankenstein in the universe here. We just need a monster castle. Yet a Frankenstein costume exists before the movie. Just again, it's without bogging down all the details and all the theories, it doesn't make a lot of sense anyway you slice
it. All right. But I mean, other than that, it's certainly not a bad movie. I can't really think of a lot of other flaws with it.
Yeah. I mean,
mine's a little too much.
I'm sorry?
But at the same point, it kind of shows off a different side of Dave, so I can't really complain about that a lot.
Sure. I mean, on the whole, I feel like they're not going the extra mile with some of the clever ideas in the movie, but again, it's now in the Chipmunks movie. It's asking for too much. It might be asking for too much from the kind of dive and like a lot of this Hollywood stuff, but at the same time, I don't think it's asking too much to have more focus on Frankenstein the movie. I feel that third act, while interesting and while fun, I don't know. I feel we get away from Frankenstein in the third act, and I feel that's kind of a problem.
Well, we absolutely do, Dragon. It becomes a different movie entirely. You're right about that. I just think the third act is just like really, really. I mean, I won't deny it's totally disconnected from the whole thing. It's my favorite part of the movie because it's so fun and so meta.
Yeah, I mean indeed that's my main flaw with the movie is that again on the whole like it's not a bad movie by any stretch, but like it's like a missed opportunity. That man, Alvin and Chipmunks meet Frankenstein. We don't really do a lot with Frankenstein. He's just kind of there, and then the third act is complete. Just he's on the sidelines, and then we get rid of him on a water ride, and it's like okay, hey, remember who the movie's about? Last scene has to involve Frankenstein. Otherwise, what do we make the movie for? All right. Okay, so I guess all that said, I don't want to nitpick like the kid and the mom earlier because they're kind of like cheap exposition. My son wasn't scared, and all that.
Oh,
But
she was a terrible mother, though.
yeah, I mean, she's just plus she's such a plot device too because we need someone to spell out to Mister Yesman that
Right.
your rides aren't scary. Bring in a specialist, maybe Doctor Frankenstein, if you can find a man with such a ridiculous name. He doesn't spell it like that, but you know.
All right.
So I guess let's get to some favorite moments. We don't want to end on the salt. Let's get to some of that sugar.
Yeah. So, Dragon, should we start with yours chronologically, or should we start with mine because we were just talking about the third act? What do you
Let's
think?
just go with yours.
Okay. So yeah, folks, my favorite moment is just kind of like broad spectrum, like in umbrella terms, just the third act in general. I don't know. There's something about just seeing Alvin get taken down a peg that's just really satisfying to me.
So just to say what happens to Alvin, Dr. Frankenstein tries to turn him into a monster replacement, and again, my logic of it is that again the doctor has been brainwashed by this theme park, and this theme park has gotten to him. And again, they don't say this, so I can't say it necessarily happens this way. But I think this is the only way it makes the best of sense for what happens with Alvin.
Right,
Is
right.
that again, like he's been inspired by the theme park and like the Sammy Squirrel and like all that stuff, and basically he's been kind of driven a little mad by it, and mad scientist being driven mad, and he wants to make a new like the modern equivalent of a Frankenstein monster to Frankenstein to Dr. Frankenstein here is a tune, an annoying tune. So he basically creates like an annoying tune monster, which is Alvin.
And so, like I said, I love this because it's a commentary on a couple different things here. It's a commentary on, Alvin and his reputation, kind of like the fact that it's hard to do Alvin right, as you kind of mentioned, Dragon. And then I also love the fact that it's like basically what it's saying is that old school, it's almost kind of ahead of its time in a weird way, in that like old school cartoons are not appropriate for today's modern times. Like if you look at old school cartoons, it's just it's just like almost cringy. And if that behavior was spun off into real life, if real life like we exhibited that kind of behavior, it wouldn't be pretty, folks. It would be like, like you walk around with, acting like 1940s era Bugs Bunny, you're gonna put, you're gonna have some trouble with the law. You know what I mean?
Or
So,
Woody Woodpecker. I mean, Woody Woodpecker be locked up in an asylum these days. He would.
so I love the animation on Alvin. I love the fact that we've just got that wacky kind of like Roger Rabbit music playing everywhere he goes. You're absolutely not wrong, Dragon. It totally takes a left turn from the plot. It totally like the movie would have been better if they would have focused more on Frankie in the third act. You're totally not wrong about that. Absolutely not. However, as like a 20-minute Looney Tune, I love it. It's just like it's completely my type of comedy. I I love the bit where Alvin's like up with his favorite actor, and
Bud Wiley, who, by the way, I hope you caught this, Tiki. You know who he's a parody of, don't you?
who is he? Who is he?
He's a parody of Bruce Willis.
Oh God, no, I
Get it,
didn't.
Bud BW, Bud Wiley, and it's basically Midsummer Night's car chase looks exactly like Die Hard because he has the tank top and everything, and he has like the hair and the voice. I caught the. I just wanted to be sure this when I rewatched that. When I was rewatching the scene where he gives the autograph, he sounds like Bruce Willis when he gives the autograph.
Uh-huh.
It's not Bruce Willis. I'm just saying it's like doing a pair. I wonder though, because this is '99. I don't know when the whistle was blown. Bruce Willis not being the nicest person to some people. I don't know. I don't know if like if he's always been like that, or if it was like maybe he's always been like that and it just was underreported. Maybe that maybe people didn't.
Obviously, the Kevin Smith thing opened the floodgates on that, but
That's the thing is I don't know like how because like again some people he has a great time with, but by the same token, the point is Bruce Willis is a strong personality. Whether it was like infamous or not in the industry, I don't know. But it's for
mhm.
the industry day. Anyway. But
And
yeah,
basically all there is to it with my moments. Like I said, I kind of picked a whole act instead of individual moments. So, there's a lot we could break down, but I don't want to I don't want to dwell on it all night here. I just think overall it's just a genuinely really well constructed like I said, it doesn't fit in really well with the movie, but it's kind of a great standalone segment. So yes, it's a bit disconnected, but it's still like, I think at the very least, by far, it's the riskiest thing that they do with the movie. Like it's taken our hero and really taken him down a peg. You know what I mean? In a big way. And so for that reason alone, I find it very entertaining.
well, two things. One, just with your point, I feel like again, it's still not preferable because again, like Frankenstein would have been nice to see a little bit more of that. But just even working with what the Alvin thing, I feel they could keep all that. But if only they could have like again strengthened, like make it more direct, like why the scientist is doing this. Like again, if he's been inspired by this theme park, if it's driven him crazy, then it would make a lot more sense. But again, I can only infer that. If they say that directly, at least it would give it more of a reason for happening. You know.
Mm.
The other thing, and this I thought you might get a kick out of because you seem to be liking the meta side of all this Alvin stuff. Some people have theorized that Sammy Squirrel, he's I think when I keep saying the song lyrics, I think it's just Sammy Squirrel. I don't know why I keep saying Sammy Squirrel. Anyway. So the point is Sammy Squirrel, the theme park mascot. Many people believe he is not just a parody of generally like a figurehead like a Mickey Mouse type, but specifically that he's a parody of Alvin the Chipmunk because he sings all the time when he goes around.
Right.
Like some people think that it's a self parody of like, yeah, we get it. Alvin the Chipmunks, it can be it's not everybody's cup of tea, and this is kind of our acknowledgement of it through this mascot character. I believe that'd be kind of funny if that's intentional. Again, there's no jury's out on that. It'd be kind of cool. So I guess. So I guess I should get the mime thing then.
Yeah.
All right. So I got a lot of Frankenstein related stuff. Before I get to that, let me just briefly bring up the whole, the Chipmunks hijacking the tram tour, which is hilarious. So again, they have these tram tours in Universal, and again, this I think specifically it's again this has to be a California poll specifically.
Oh yeah, definitely California.
I keep thinking of the psych of like that video that Freddie Highmore did with Bates Motel, where basically they had the tram tour and they went to the Bates Motel, and
you go right past the Bates Motel on the tram tour, Dragon. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So the point is like there's a lot of built up iconography with kind of a tram tour, and I just love we have this actor who's just trying to impress everybody, hoping a producer will one day be taking the studio tour and he'll impress them and everything. And basically what the Chipmunks do, and this is the sell of the Chipmunks to me. This is when the Chipmunks are at their best, where they're kind of dialed into and they're entertaining people, more entertainers than singers, I guess, but again, it kind of defeats the Chipmunks first and foremost supposed to be singers, but just them like Alvin being, they're all motivated by what they do best here. Like Alvin, he's hijacked the tram as he would, taking the initiative. He's driving it very recklessly, and Simon's just trying to. And this is the best Simon thing in the whole movie to me. Simon, he's saying, and on the left, you'll see while we're going at a very increased speed, you'll see this celebrity or where this was shot. It's great. And of course, Theodore, when they put on the production of basically the, I don't know if they parodied it directly from the movie, but the main scene that they, High Society, Low Lies, which again, that parody of High Society, Low Morals. I don't know if that scene is from that movie or what, but they basically enacted the whole scene that won the crowd over. They're crying and everything's using all these found items on the tram. It's a lot of fun. Is what I'm getting at. That tram thing. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of crazy fun though. Slow motion looks terrible in that animation, but it's great. It's great fun though. But yeah, okay. So the main thing is to summarize. Again, you summarize the act. I'll summarize kind of a whole montage. Very simple.
Okay.
Again, it's one of those things where again I'm not crazy about the song, but I do love the visuals in this. I love the playground scene where Frankenstein. Again, it's the flower scene gone right. The best way of putting it. It's the flower scene gone befriending children. And the good thing is that we do see some progression here. Frankenstein, he's having a temper tantrum. He's taking things. He learns what sharing means, and again he befriends the children at the playground. It's like my inner kid of like the love I had for the Frankenstein monster kind of shown. Like, oh man, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be a happy ending? Where
Right.
the spoon that he broke and the ball, and he's sharing the cookie with the little girl and he's helping the girl up who fell on the ground. That's quality Frankenstein. I mean, that's that's the what if I'd love to see. So all that, just what that playground scene is really nice to me. Again, like all that's nice. And then we have a scene that I feel earlier on. We have the scene where before the playground scene where Frankenstein, he's curious and he's looking at the curios, like little decorative things in the Seville house, like these little crystal figurines, and he's looking at them. And this is kind of like again, it's like a classic Frankenstein thing. It's like the blind man scene from Bride of Frankenstein, one of the Frankenstein movies. And he breaks it, and he feels guilty, and he tries to hide, he tries to fix it, tries to like to put them all together, and he just puts them in a drawer. Points he breaks everything that he touches. And he feels, and you see the guilt on Frankenstein's face, like, whoop, he just feels, he's all clumsy, he's all thumbs, all stitched on thumbs. And Theodore says, "Hey, don't worry about it. Accidents happen. Like, well, let's see a show of hands here. Who in here has broken something?" And of course, Alvin very reluctantly, he knocks some stuff over, and he raises his hand. It's like it's kind of a nice form of acceptance for Frankenstein. Hey, we're not perfect, buddy. It's okay. That's really hit me in the feels of Frankenstein. A lot of the stuff in this movie with Frankenstein. So personally, I liked a lot of the Frankenstein stuff with that. All right. So yeah, I think it's enough of the movie. So again, in the end, let's kind of a combo here. Like, how does this stand as a Frankenstein, as a film featuring Frankenstein, and again, kind of like our final thoughts here. Like on the whole, how do you feel about the movie and how Frankenstein's represented within this film?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, Dragon, because I feel like it's a double-edged sword with a build-up because it does give us our creepy Halloween atmosphere. But at the same time, of course, traditionally with these direct-to-video things, it's usually about, an hour, 17 minutes. We're not even getting the hour and a half. So, it's not a perfect movie by any means, but it definitely means well. And it's definitely, as we said, very much in nostalgia for us with this movie. As a Frankenstein movie, I think it does several things right, especially as we keep saying kind of the, basically exploring what if the scenario, what if Frankenstein was given a fair shot? You know what I mean? What if, what if things would have turned out a little bit better for the Karloff monster? And that's where this movie does succeed. Unfortunately, I feel like tonally it could be a little bit more even. I feel like I feel like the third act is, as much as I love all the Alvin stuff in the third act, I feel like it really should have been kind of like that angry mob thing surrounding Frankie, maybe, dare I say, kind of like, I could imagine the third act being essentially a better version of Doug's first movie, where it's like, the townspeople are rallying behind the monster that we know isn't actually a monster. And I feel like that would have made us a little bit more emotionally invested. And as I said, as a Frankenstein movie, however, that being said, the one thing that we have to acknowledge with the Alvin stuff that is important is that, the Karloff monster isn't the only thing with the Frankenstein franchise. There's been Frankenstein movies that haven't involved the classic monster whatsoever. And so I think that's really what the Alvin stuff is supposed to represent, is kind of the unhinged side of Frankenstein, kind of the, the real mad scientist side of Frankenstein. I feel like it does that really well. And that's kind of a side of Frankenstein in media that we don't really touch on all that much. And so by that extent, I'm pleased with it. But at the same time, I feel like we could have incorporated Frankie into that third act a little better than we did. Overall, it's definitely not a perfect movie. As I said, it very much is a movie that leans on nostalgia. I don't think someone watching this for the first time in 2018 is going to sit down with it and be like, hot diggity damn, that's one of the best representations of Frankenstein I've ever seen. But, by the same point, Dragon, it's a harmless little movie, and it's a lot of fun, and, it's very, very sweet, and it's very heartwarming, and, I'd say it's worth the time.
Yeah. For me, it definitely feels like in regards to Frankenstein, it feels like where a lot of my fondness for Frankenstein comes from, like kind of an Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein environment, like an attempt at something like that. That's kind of what the movie's trying for. I mean, you have to with a movie called like Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Abbott and Costello own meats as a whole, despite the fact they used it they probably use it in more movies. Seriously, they probably used it in more movies than you can think of. It's like they met so many other horror icons, like horror inspired icons. Like they've used meats a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, to even take an Abbott and Costello out of the equation, it's again, it is a fun what if for the Frankenstein's monster. It's what if he befriended the children? What if he befriended children instead of drowning them? It's like yeah, how great that would be.
Frankenstein people can get behind.
Yeah. I mean, I really, again, Frankenstein's a character, again, it's the idea, it's like the monster that we like and we root for, and that we see that people were the real monsters to this monster. It's like, that's the idea with Frankenstein. That's one of the reasons, like, I think he's endured for so many years, and we kind of explore that here, which is so rare. Usually we just retell that story over and over again, and usually we do something different with Dr. Frankenstein. It's like, okay, what if it's James McAvoy? Okay, what if it was a different brain? Okay, what if it was an excellent comedy with Gene Wilder and Peter Boyle? It's don't wrong. I'm not saying there's a wrong way to do that. I'm just saying it's kind of like let's do something gutsy with Frankenstein. Let's do something kind of different and fun. Like let's use that monster everybody knows like the back of their hand. Do something fresh with it. And I mean, I really wish it did have more to say about Frankenstein as a property. Like I feel this movie is scratching the surface of some really good stuff that really didn't occur to me years ago. And I see, like, there's some great commentary on theme parks, on Hollywood, on the Chipmunks' career. I feel while they're scratching the surface on that, and again with this Frankenstein idea of like, what if Frankenstein had a nicer interaction with people? I feel like they could do a lot more with this, but with the short runtime and the fact they're not trying to wow the world with this. They're not really. I feel like if they were really trying, I feel they could have gone the extra mile with this. But I think they did something that was a little different than between this and the Wolfman, this is more memorable. Wolfman is like, if you've seen it, then you might remember it. But even that, like, I've seen that movie and I remember this one like the back of my hand. That one, it's like I don't know all the finer details, but I mean I remember it's like I like this one more than that. And at the end of the day, it's cute for what it is. That's a movie. The movie's cute for what it is, and it's worth like rewatching if you're in the Halloween spirit. If you're like you're on a Frankenstein kick, I check it out. Not before Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein or Young Frankenstein, but I check it out all the same.
And not before the original Frankenstein either. Which we need to get the original Frankenstein.
Well, sorry, I kind of meant that one with that. I'm saying like all the Frankenstein movies, not including like Frankenstein for the. I'm sorry, yeah, you're right. We should always preface it with the original Frankenstein, then Abbott and Costello, then Young Frankenstein, but then few down the line, then this.
The original Frankenstein is like far and away my favorite of the Universal monster movies. So, that franchise means a lot to me.
And Bride's really good too.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, Dragon, I'm kind of stalling because I need to get to my notes for the outro. Any other things to say about it?
Yeah, folks. I mean, it's a shame. I don't know if it comes on anymore, like on Cartoon Network. After there's always been shakeups in programming, and Cartoon Network's always been a little behind with how they've aired things. And I don't.
For all we know, they're not doing any Halloween programming, and it's just Teen Titans Go all the time.
Exactly, and again, like basically, once in a blue moon, they'll do like a block of Steven Universe, and that's them on a good day. But beyond that, it's like there's kind of spinning their wheels. Let's just put on what gets the. Look at the chart. What gets the numbers? Teen Titans Go, right? Has that changed at all? No. So anyway, they keep pouring that on us, and like, hey, they're wearing costumes that counts for Halloween, right? But I long for the day where this could be enjoyed by people and kind of checked out by people. But I want to acknowledge it's probably an impossibility because again, like Nickelodeon's now, Nickelodeon now has like the new Alvin the Chipmunks show. So maybe we'll never see this again. I think that's a shame because it's a shame that people it's a shame we don't have more animated Frankenstein things. That's the thing. Like not just like the Hotel Transylvania animated show that's not even done by the people who did the movie. Like I want more animated Frankenstein. I feel like the old Universal horror monsters, they don't get we go for. I don't think they get the respect that we owe them. You know, I don't want to just sound like an old man with that, but it'd be nice to see like some new, fresh stuff done with the old classics. That'd be nice.
All right. Us, babe, but don't worry, they'll be stronger than ever next time as we engage in even more haunted holiday hijinks.
So you think I've made a monster out of dead bodies or something?